Welcome to City of Keene in Focus. Thanks so much for listening. Good morning. We are here to talk to you a little bit about some of the going on in the city. And I am Asa Kramer. I do a lot of the audio video stuff, and I am here with Elizabeth Dragon, who is our city manager.
Yeah, thanks, Asa. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. Being that it's Friday, last night was city council,
Yes.
and there was lots of good discussion. So would you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about what happened last night?
Sure. Last night, first of all, we had the opportunity to recognize the Keene High School field hockey program. They were here last night. We had a room full of wonderful young ladies who were recognized.
Really sweet.
Yeah, it was great. They were all recognized by the mayor and the council, for their success this year. So that was kind of a fun way to start the meeting. The other thing last night we talked about was elections. We just had a presidential election, and there's a lot of work that goes into that. Work that's really led by our city clerk and our city clerk's office, but there's a lot of coordination with volunteers. And so last night, the mayor recognized them, the clerk's office and all the volunteers, as did I, and I thought some of the statistics that he shared was really interesting. He talked about the voter turnout in all of our wards, so the city has 5 wards, and all of the wards had 70 to 75% turnout, and Ward 4 actually reached 89%. And this is the highest turnout that I think we've ever seen.
I was shocked to hear those numbers. 89% is crazy.
It is
good turnout.
Amazing. And there were also 2,500 new voters registered, which again, amazing. And I know myself, when I went to vote, there was a long line, but the process was very efficient. I was in and out of there within 30 minutes, which may seem like a lot, but if you compare it to a lot of the cities and towns around us, that it actually wasn't. For the amount of people that were voting, it was a very efficient process. And there were 14,000 ballots cast citywide. So just amazing.
Wow.
Great work by the clerk's office and all of our election volunteers, and even had a few department heads helping out.
That's great. Yeah, I had to go down to the police department on election day for something else, and which is right by one of the voting wards in the Blastos room. And there were people milling about talking about how impressed they were by our election volunteers and the election workers and just how kind everyone was. So yeah, huge gratitude towards all of the hard work that went into that.
Yeah, really wonderful. Other thing that happened last night, we had a couple of public hearings. We had a public hearing for what's called our cable franchise agreement. And we have a long-standing franchise agreement with Charter, and they are, looking to renew it. And basically, it's last time I think it was a 20-year agreement. We're looking to renew it for another 20 years. Unfortunately, there's not a lot that we can actually negotiate as part of that agreement, but it is required that we begin the process with a public hearing. Our deputy city manager, Rebecca Landry, is awesome, and she has been leading that charge for a long time, and so she will be at FOP next week talking about the changes in our agreement. The other public hearing we had last night was in regards to a potential grant application. It's a CDBG grant, or a Community Development Block Grant. Cedar Crest Center in our community is looking to access those funds to look at their HVAC system and some other facility issues in the building that they would like to upgrade. And in order to access CDBG grant funds, you need to be a nonprofit, and you need to either go through your town or city or your county. And towns and cities have the ability to apply for these funds a few times during the year, but because this is a planning grant, we actually can apply for this on a rolling basis. And so it was great to be able to help the Cedar Crest out. And so last night they did get the authorization to apply for those funds. And so, fingers crossed they'll get the funds they need to evaluate their facility.
Yeah, I was really struck by the executive director of Cedar Crest was there last night, and he was talking about some of the statistics of the population that they support. And it was brought up that if Cedar Crest wasn't there, they might have to go to Boston to receive the support that they need. They are offering such good services to people who really need it.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I was really struck by last night, and I didn't know that they did this, but it makes sense. They provide respite services for families. It's just a great organization to have in our community. Then next on our agenda last night, we always have a section called communications. And what this is letters that are written to the mayor and city council. And they are placed on the agenda and then referred by the council to a council committee. And so we had a handful of those last night. We had a letter come in related to parking ticket rates that was referred to our finance committee meeting. We also had a letter come in related to speed limit concerns related to Upper Roxbury Street. What's interesting about that is the petitioner is asking for the speed to be reduced to 20 miles per hour in this section of Roxbury Street. However, under state law, we can't reduce it lower than 25. And even to reduce it to 25, you have to do a traffic analysis, and it has to meet certain parameters to be reduced to 25. But what happens with a letter like this, it gets referred to the committee, and then staff will come in and talk about sort of what the options are, what things we have available to us, and the council will listen to the concerns. And sometimes it may not be the speed limit reduction, it might be something else that will come out as a result of that conversation. Also on last night's agenda, there was a letter that came in related to Gilboa Ave. Gilboa Ave is really the next extension of our downtown. It's definitely part of our downtown project. And we have a resident interested in just talking about long-term use for Gilboa Ave and what sort of mixed-use development might happen. So that letter was referred to PLD. That'll be on their next agenda. And then we had a letter proposing some amendments to our land use code related to side setbacks, and that letter was also referred to PLD. And in addition to those items that were referred last night, our annual acceptance of donations for holiday family sponsorship. Now, this is a really cool program. I don't know how long they've been doing it here in the city, but it's very, very, very cool, because what happens is our Human Services Department interacts with families in need, and they create a list of families that might need some assistance during the holidays. And right here at City Hall, all of our departments and our employees contribute to buying presents for these families, and then Human Services and other volunteers wrap them all. And so it's a pretty large undertaking, but it's something that everybody really enjoys doing.
So I started a couple years ago, right before the holidays in December, and I remember walking in, and it was just hallways full of gifts, household supplies, and I was like, "What is happening in City Hall right now?" And I asked about it, and it was it's all donated by employees to families in need, and it's a really just incredible showcase of generosity and community coming together, I think.
And then next week on the Planning, Licenses, and Development Committee, in addition to the items we talked about, we have a request coming in from the Greater Monadnock Collaborative related to a 30th anniversary celebration for the filming of Jumanji right here in downtown. And so they're looking for a license, and that will be discussed. And then there are several rules of order amendments that are also going to be discussed. And what that is the City Council, every year they review their own rules of how they will interact. That will be discussed next week as well. And then last night on the agenda, we just had a few items. So what happens is, so the committees that meet the week before, those actions are then referred to the full city council. And so last night they had a few different reports. One was just an acceptance of a presentation from the Code Fire Inspections Division. So Rick Wood, our fire marshal, came in and provided an update to the committee, so they accepted that as informational. We also had a resident, Rabbit Hom, who had submitted a letter that was referred to committee to talk about sidewalk and traffic improvements at the intersection of Grove and Water Street. There was a lot of conversation at committee about that, and in the end, they've referred it to staff because many of the things that he was requesting we follow up on either require additional funding as part of our capital plan or would require additional study. And so we will report back. And then last night, they also accepted a report from committee related to what was called the WOW initiative at the Ward Optimization Weeks. So we have a new public works director, and he really wanted to find a way to more efficiently use the city's resources, but also to engage the public in our yearly maintenance. Instead of responding to different maintenance issues in a neighborhood or in a ward, one at a time, we consolidated those requests into 1 week at a time. It was a very popular initiative that I do think will continue next year. And then also there was action on sale of property at 0 Grove Street. And this is really part of an initiative the city has taken on related to housing. We are looking at all city-owned property to see if there's any potential for disposal of that property for housing projects in particular. And then we got, last night, we accepted some more money, which is always cool.
Yay.
Yay. $500,000 actually. And it's from a Land Water Conservation Fund grant, and it is for the Robin Hood renovation project, Parks and Rec. And Andy Bohannon, who was the director of Parks and Rec for a long period of time, sought these funds as part of the Robin Hood renovation project. And so last night, the council accepted them. And then the Homeland Security Grant Program for the fire department. It's a small grant, but it's something that we get each year. And this year, we are going to use it for some training and some equipment for the fire department. And then every council meeting, I give an update under city manager's comments. I gave several updates last night. I think probably the one that will be most interesting to people, especially people in the downtown, is related to the fire master box system. So we have a hardwired system in the downtown where if a fire alarm is tripped, this is hardwired and connected to the fire department. And that system is very old, outdated, and very costly to maintain. And so the fire department is moving away from that system, and they are moving to a radio box system, or there are other options for property owners to use as well. But we're just starting that conversation, and so I anticipate there'll be a lot of interest in that next month when the fire chief comes in and the fire marshal comes in, and they talk about potential changes to our ordinances and options for people who currently rely on the fire master box system. Then the other thing that's been a very popular topic is parking. Can you imagine that? Parking. Yeah. Parking is something that we spend a lot of time talking about. Last night, we had several additional ordinances drafted that have been referred to committee, and so we will be talking about parking some more at the committee level.
I think almost every single one of those ordinances was related to parking, right?
Yes, I think they were. So the council started with some changes to the winter parking ban. Last month, I think it was, the council adopted a change in the ordinance that would allow some on-street parking in the winter. In the past, once you hit November 1st, you weren't allowed to do on-street parking between the hours, I think it was 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. So this is providing some additional flexibility. But like all changes to the ordinance, it's not that simple. There are lots of other sections of the ordinance that need to be looked at that reference on-street parking, and there's some year-round restrictions that also need to be addressed, and so that conversation will continue. And then I don't know how many people are aware of this, but we do have a program at the library for public access programming. So if you want to create your own show and talk about whatever it is you're interested in, you can do that over at the library. And we have an organization called Fact TV there that provides that service. Last night, I let the council and the public know that the Fact TV is going to be closed until December 2nd, while they do a little bit of reorganization. But if you are doing broadcasting and you want to, work on your show in the meantime, you can use the Fact TV studio in Bellows Falls.
And I believe you can also, if you film something on your own, I believe they do accept file submissions as well.
Oh, good to know. The other thing last night that the council did was they adopted what's called our fiscal policies. And so every year the city reviews our fiscal policies, make amendments, and readopts them. And so last night they did that, and there weren't a lot of changes to the fiscal policies that were proposed, but those policies are really important because they do set the parameters for the upcoming budget process. Speaking of our finance team, though, I'm going to take a quick opportunity to put a plug in because the city, like every other organization, is experiencing retirements. People with decades of service are retiring, and we're seeing that more and more. And so our finance director is retiring.
And we're so happy for her, but we're so sad for us.
I know. And so we've been advertising for the finance director position. We are also advertising for our community development director position right now. Unfortunately, Jesse moved back to Colorado, and that. Again, we're happy for him. It was a family decision, but still, it's tough for us as we try to recruit. So I'm encouraging everyone to go to our website. On the very front page of our website, that there's a box that talks about city jobs. Click on that, and we update that continually with all of the job opportunities here at the city. The city is a great place to work. No matter what your interest is, I'm pretty sure we'll have a job that will fit your needs.
For sure.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm going to throw a little bit of a spontaneous question at you.
Oh, okay.
When I was discussing starting this podcast, a question was requested to talk about what do you think people would be surprised to learn about working at the city, and what are some of your favorite things about the workplace environment here?
Oh, that's a great question. People who typically work for the city do it because they want to provide service. There are so many opportunities in all the different departments to interact with the public and just feel really good about the work that you do because you are making a difference in, the day-to-day lives of people who live, work, or just visit here. What's been really great, Asa, and I'll give you a plug now, is the work that you've been doing with all the Facebook reels and videos highlighting the really awesome work of the people who work here. And I think those have been some of the most popular social media posts that we've had. And it's because we're highlighting the work that people do and hopefully getting other people interested in doing that work as well. And, in addition to providing service and being part of sort of this bigger picture, there's a great deal of teamwork and camaraderie in the city. That's something we want to make sure we always maintain.
I would agree. It is like 250, the number is sort of a rough estimate, but like 250 of really nice, really smart people. And that's kind of a rare combination, is for people to be so nice and also so smart, and smart in a lot of really different ways.
We're really fortunate. And then I guess I will just wrap up for last night's meeting. There were just a few other things that happened last night. We had a couple of additional items that were referred to committee. So we have a couple of appropriations. One was for the solid waste fund related to their employees. So they have a request coming in that will go to the next finance meeting. So that's on the November 14th date. And then last night there was an adoption of an appropriation of funds for the solid waste division. So for the transfer station, this is about a violation related to a biodiesel generator that we put in place at the transfer station. So the city received this EPH showcase grant. We went out to bid for a generator, and it was a 100% biodiesel generator, which no one had done. But honestly, once we received that generator, we had a lot of challenges to overcome for multiple years. We had to get the generator up and running, and we had to create testing protocols with the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. There were issues, and the generator wasn't running properly. We had to shut it down, use our backup generator. This went on for a period of time. We had multiple consultants helping us to try to get this thing running. But as a result of that, because we did have to use our backup generator for a period of time, we did violate some of the state's policies, and we were subject to a fine. You know, it's a little frustrating because the transfer station is completely off the grid. So there weren't a lot of options for us. We had to use some generator, either a backup generator or this new one that we had received. If we were going to keep the transfer station open and operating, we in the end did work out an agreement with the DES and ultimately the EPA. And so this is really, last night was the conclusion of that. In addition to the fine, we are doing a tree planting program. The council was so supportive of adding more trees to city properties and city right-of-ways that we are moving forward with a small tree planting program as well. So that last night was the conclusion of it. Now we have agreement with the state. We'll pay the fine, and we have our 100% biodiesel generator running. So I think that is pretty much the conclusion of last night's council meeting.
Yeah, that was a great recap. Thank you for giving that summary. I know it's hard sometimes for people to be able to make it to meetings, so having a brief sort of summary of what happened, I think, is really valuable.
Yeah, and so, I'm hoping with this that this is helpful. We'll see, right? We'll get some feedback and
we'll see how it goes.
If anyone likes this. If they don't, we'll see how it goes. It's sort of a pilot project for us. But I really hope that there's a couple of things. One, that this is another way for us to try to get out information. We're always trying to find different ways to get out information. But also, hopefully, we've generated some interest in these jobs.
Yes.
And also to check out our website, because there's a ton of information there. We created a little section on there for city events. And so the next event that's coming up is actually November 29th. It's the tree lighting event in downtown. It's one of my favorite.
Rumor is Santa's going to be there.
Yeah. It's, if you have young families, and you haven't gone to this event, you really should check it out. It's awesome.
We covered a lot today. I know there were a couple of things that we talked about covering, and I think we covered most of them. Was there anything else that you want to touch on or you feel like people should know about?
I think we covered most everything I was hoping to cover for today. I know, there are some interesting things that we'll need to talk about in the future related to topics on the MSFI agenda, but since that's a couple weeks out, maybe we'll save that for the next one.
So again, Planning and Licenses and Development Committee is going to be Wednesday, November 13th at 6 p.m. right here in Council Chambers. Finance, Organization, and Personnel Committee is going to be Thursday, November 14th at 6 p.m. Next council meeting is Thursday, November 21st at 7 p.m. Council's always a little bit later. And then MSFI is going to be Tuesday. Again, that's Tuesday, November 26th at 6 p.m.
The downtown project will be a topic of conversation at MSFI in December. It is not on the November agenda, which I know that people have been a little bit confused about that. But we will be talking to the MSFI committee about the final design elements of the downtown project. You can go on to the downtown project website and sign up for text updates, email updates, and there's lots of different ways to follow what's happening with that project. And with construction anticipated in May, beginning in May, it's going to be really important that we get as many people signing up for those updates as possible.
I think that just about wraps it up. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Asa.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Thanks for listening to City of Keene in Focus. We'll see you next time.